Hi everybody and welcome to Series 1 of Make Your Move, and it is all about making some moves happen for sure. I'm Joy McClymont and I'm going to be running you through this webinar tonight with my lovely co-host Stacey Curcio. Are you there, Stace?
I am.
Great. So just to give you a bit of perspective, I'm the owner of Off the Track Training and the Chief Personal Trainer. I also created a wonderful virtual online fitness and health program and community called Joy's Fitness Hub, and within that is the Spring into Life program. So Stacey and I are both joint creators of that program. Stacey is a wonderful naturopath nutritionist from Cultivating Wellness. You may have seen or heard lots of her wonderful information around food. She's obviously also the joint creator of all the nutritional guidelines and tasks within our program. So Stacey writes all of those tasks and she liaises with everybody within the program and gives them lots of guidance and support. And she is one of the most knowledgeable and supportive foodie chicks I've ever come across. So we're very lucky to have you, Stace. Thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us again tonight.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
So this webinar series, just for everybody to get a bit of perspective on what it's all about, it's going to address some of the most challenging issues that people face when they want to progress their overall health and well-being. And the reason why we know and have picked these topics to cover is because all of the people that we train always get faced and have these challenges about food and fitness, and we are constantly coaching them through these challenges all the time. So we've decided to put them into a series and share this information and support with everybody. So Stacey and I are both absolutely committed to helping people feel energized, which energy is so critical to how you tackle all of life's challenges, holistically healthy, and by that we mean from top to toe, body, mind, all of those things, and that's what it truly means to be healthy. We want you to feel strong, confident, and capable. There is nothing better than being able to open your own jam jars, to being able to pack your own car, to being able to feel strong, confident, and capable, and that's what we want to support with everybody. So that's what we're here for, and that's the driving force behind everything we do, including tonight's Make Your Move Series 1 and including all of the other series that we'll be following up with. But tonight, Stacey Curcio is going to kick us off addressing the issue of eating too much, too often. So, Stacey, are you ready to roll?
Absolutely.
So, first of all, Stace, this issue of overeating, going for seconds all of the time, loading up our plates, why on earth is it so hard to get our portions right?
Yeah, it's a good question. But remember that, it's human nature to eat when we're presented with food, and really quite simply the more food that we're surrounded by and that we're presented with, generally the more we eat. So, and that also applies to the actual portion size. So when most people are served larger portions and drinks, of foods and drinks, then they overeat. And studies even show they overeat even when they're determined to stop. So that's just kind of an example of how, it's this kind of instinctual drive. If it's around us, we are going to kind of passively overeat. But to kind of dive into that a little bit more, there's a few main reasons aside from that why I think people find it so tricky to really master portion control. So firstly, we're busy, and eating on the run and eating while we're preoccupied doing other things almost always results in overeating. So that's kind of the first trigger, I think, for a lot of people. Secondly, our food environment. I mean, in the West, the portion sizes have been steadily increasing since the 1970s, and we really do live in a supersized world today. And, the food industry really does want us to eat more so they can sell more. So, I was reading about, different sizes in different years. And in 1988, you could buy like a Cadbury, dairy milk chocolate, and the normal size was 54 grams. But now you can buy a Cadbury dairy milk chocolate in 49 grams, 110 grams, 200 grams, and 360 grams. So almost, 6 to 7 times bigger in serving in, that particular period of time. And I think breakfast cereals are another one that are a bit cheeky. So a standard serve of breakfast cereal is about 35 grams if kind of you read the packet. 30 grams if you read the packet. But, you know, generally what most people would have is probably 2 to 3 times that. So I think, you know, the food environment has a lot to answer for. And another place where I think we'll get caught out when it comes to this kind of food environment is this sense of value that, you know, that we get when we see larger serving sizes and also packaging sizes. So, you know, that's great when you see something like shampoo or toilet paper, but you just have to be so careful when it comes to buying more because it's, you know, 2 for 1 or, you know, twice as much, you know, for half as much basically. We just need to be careful when it comes to food, essentially. So there's 2 reasons. The third reason is because many of us eat with our eyes, and we've just become accustomed to eating off these massive plates and out of these huge jumbo coffee cups and these big fancy wine glasses. So we tend to think that a portion is actually just whatever is put in front of us. But that's not the case. I mean, basically we've lost our way a little bit when it comes to actually knowing what a normal portion size of food is, because we live in this world where we are generally drinking out of bigger cups and mugs and things and eating off bigger plates. Even our cutlery, you know, the spoons are bigger, the forks are bigger, etc., than what they used to be. And we can also eat with our emotions. You know, a lot of people emotionally eat for one reason or another, and you know that generally isn't stemming from a physical hunger. It's from that kind of emotional place. So that can be another driver, you know, for some people. And fourthly, habits. So, you know, we can get stuck in a bit of a rut of overeating, and I think that really relates to the busy thing. So sometimes we just need to stop and really just assess our habits and determine, you know, if they're problematic for us in the first place. And finally, good old culture. We know that, you know, the Japanese and the French, for example, are much better at portion sizes than we are here down under. And I think a lot of that has to do with, you know, our conditioning when we were younger and also our culture. So there's some of the reasons I think as to why, you know, it's not easy to nail portion sizes all the time.
Yeah, and then, you know, above that too, Stacey, there's all these questions about, well, you know, why can they eat that much food, and how much do I actually need to eat as a person, and depending on the activity I'm doing and the lifestyle I'm leading and the age I am. So why is there so much variation in portion size?
Well, I think the food industry, I feel like I'm really on them tonight, but I do think that has a lot to do with it, because you can upsize just about everything. So that's led to, you know, as I kind of mentioned before, but it's kind of led to that there's this bit of a distorted view about what is actually normal. But we've also got a lot more choice now when it comes to different sizes, like the Cadbury chocolate that I mentioned. You don't just get one option anymore, you get 5. And, you know, 4 out of the 5 options are much bigger than what they used to be. So I think that you know, that there was so much choice, and in some ways we're so lucky with that, but in other ways it does make it really difficult to know what's normal, what should I actually be eating. And I think when it comes to upbringing in Australia and stuff, I think, you know, so many people, so many clients basically have said to me, you know, I was raised that I have to eat everything on my plate because you know, because otherwise it's going to go to waste and I have to eat everything. So they're basically conditioned to eat, you know, everything on their plate. So I think culturally that's really, really accepted in our, you know, I know certainly in our household that's kind of what happens. So I think that's got a bit to do with it as well, in terms of kind of, yeah, trying to undo some of that conditioning. And, you know, some people do. I know my husband's Italian, and it's really culturally accepted to eat a lot and to eat pretty often. You know, they're big feasts, and that's where a lot of their you know, events centre around food. So I think culture has a bit to do with it too, and it can be really a positive thing, but it can also be something that you've got to be very mindful of if you're, you know, if that's a daily, you know, that daily culture is imprinted on you.
Absolutely, totally get it. We're so influenced by our family and our upbringing and on all of those factors. You know, your mother saying finish everything on your plate, Is that really necessary? That sort of thing. So we totally get that it impacts on us. So how can we actually practically measure whether we're eating too much or too little, or, just the right amount?
So firstly, I think we've got to keep in mind that your stomach is about as big as your 2 fists put together. So if you make, two fists and then literally put them together, that's how big your stomach is. And it can actually stretch to 3 times that size when you're digesting food, but we want to make sure that it's not overstretched at each meal, essentially. And I know when I was studying and, when I was younger, I used to think if you eat less, it will reduce your stomach size. But that's actually a bit of a myth. What happens over time when you eat less, rather than actually shrinking your stomach, if you gradually reduce your portion sizes over time, it essentially resets your appetite thermostat. So you don't actually feel as hungry. So your body actually doesn't need quite as much food, and you can regulate those appetite hormones a little bit more effectively. So going back to those hands and the 2 fist-sized portions, the hand method is something that we talk a bit about in the hub, and I think it's just a really useful tool for understanding portion sizes. So in each meal, we want to aim for about a palm-sized portion of good quality protein. We want to aim for about 2 to 3 handfuls of good quality veggies, salads, a lot of those, fiber-rich foods, and a really good sprinkling of favourable fats. So that might be like olive oil, avocado, could be some chia seeds in breakfast or whatever. But I think, that is generally for most people quite a satiating size in terms of a meal. And to delve into that a little bit more, to give you an idea about, I guess, when it comes to, what is a serving of, if I'm supposed to have 5 servings of vegetables a day, what is a serving of vegetables? So for most veggies, 1 serving is half a cup. And if you actually measure out, say, half a cup of broccoli or half a cup of pumpkin or half a cup of corn, it's not that much. 1 serve of green leafies is about 1 cup, and that's uncooked. And a serve of potatoes, for example, so maybe a sweet potato is about half a medium potato. So it's pretty easy if you've got, 1 cup of leftover veggies in your salad at lunch, for example, and, 1 cup of green leafies in there, and you kind of add your protein and good fat to that. You've already got 3 serves of vegetables for the day. And, we only really want people, more than 5 is great, the more the better. But certainly aiming for a minimum of 5. But we also know that, 97%, I think, of Australians don't get 5 a day. So I think we can do better, especially because it's not as much as food as, as what you think to get that in. And when it comes to things like red meat, generally, if you can imagine like a deck of cards, that's generally about the portion of red meat that we should be having in any one meal. So that's not a lot, and there's certain demographics that I recommend a little bit more to, so people that are very active, people that are anemic, pregnant women, growing, teens, etc. So there's a few demographics that need a little bit more, but that's a good, I guess, a visual for people to understand that for a portion. When it comes to things like nuts and seeds and nut spread and cheeses, generally you're talking again about, a third of a cup to half a cup is a serve. So, although each different food group, we could go on and on, eggs and yogurt and, there's lots of different things that do have their exact kind of portion sizes, but I don't like to get too technical with it, and that's why I think that just using that palm method is a really good one to fall back onto. And although technically a lot of these foods have a portion limit, I have never seen anyone overdo veggies and be unwell or be overweight, for example. So I think we can be pretty generous with certain foods. We just need to be very mindful about others.
That's a really good insight because, we always think that we are eating plenty of veggies or we don't really know. We're just sort of eating food and we don't look at the nutritional value all of the time. Instead of counting calories, Stace, should we be counting, variety of foods and nutrients on that plate?
Definitely. I think if we can be counting colours, if we can be counting the amount of plants that you're eating, for example, even just for good microbiome health, we want to make sure we're getting about 40 different kinds of plants a week. for all our gut bugs, make sure they're all getting fed, you know, different kinds of food. So yeah, I think if we started counting, you know, all the good stuff we're doing versus counting, I guess the calories, and weighing things, I think, you know, that's probably a better way to go in my opinion.
Yeah, and listening to our body signals too. So, Stace, this is a bit of a sideline before we go on to snacking. When we've eaten something, how long is it until our, stomach triggers that it's actually full? Like, how long should we sort of wait before we go back for those seconds?
Yeah, it is generally about 20 minutes for most people.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So set your timers, guys.
Yeah. Within 20 minutes, your brain and body will have got the message that, you've eaten a sufficient amount of food. And if you haven't, then you will still be hungry, and therefore you probably need to eat more. But sometimes you really need to give it 20 minutes, especially if you're a quick eater.
The speed of eating. Don't we all just need to slow down, I think? Very good. So, Stace, we're going to move on now to that dreaded, snack attack. And I think that fits really nicely with the fact that we just talked about, always feeling like we need to have something to eat and not really understanding whether we're full or whether we've had too much or too little. So how do we address the dreaded snack attacks, and why on earth do we overdo it?
Yeah, and for a lot of the same reasons that I guess we overeat the main meals and the portion sizes. So it's things like mindless eating. It's being time poor and busy, so that people are relying more on snack foods because they're so convenient. It's habits, just falling into habits and bad habits. It's those environmental triggers. I mean, everywhere you go, whether it be the post office, the servo, the corner store, wherever it is, there's snacks right in front of us. So all of those reasons can kind of trigger overeating when it comes to snacking. And in Australia, we're particularly good at eating snack food because the average Aussie eats, on average, each day between kind of 7 and 14 times. Whereas when you compare that to the French, for example, they only eat generally between 3 and 5 times a day. So they actually eat less than half as much of us in terms of the frequency, so how many times they're eating, but it takes them more than twice as long to eat their food. So they eat it more slowly. And so this is this whole concept of mindful eating, and they're a little bit more mindful in how they eat. And eating is an occasion. It's not just something you do kind of on the run. Whereas in Australia, it's definitely something that a lot of people do tend to do when they're on the run, basically. So another thing that I just wanted to mention with snacks is that a question that I often get asked, and I'm sure some people have pondered, is but shouldn't we be eating, say, 6 small meals a day, to boost metabolism? And we've talked a little bit about this, I know I have with you, Joy, because the answer for most people is definitely not. So if you kind of graze around the clock, you can be putting the handbrake on fat burning, essentially, because when you're constantly grazing, it can increase the release, so more frequent release of insulin, so the hormone that helps you deal with blood sugar, and it helps you absorb blood sugar into your cells. But that can also result in increased fat storage. So the more of that kind of insulin you've got hanging around throughout the day, the harder it can be to burn into your stored body fat. The second thing is when you're constantly grazing, you lose track of the amount of calories and the amount of food you've actually eaten, and you can be left feeling really unsatisfied. So I would prefer someone just to have a really decent breakfast and a really decent lunch, for example, and obviously a good dinner too, so that they're not feeling hungry all throughout the day. They're not feeling like they've constantly got to top up because they're hungry. They're feeling satiated, but they're also getting a longer period of time between meals, and that will help, with weight loss, if that is a goal, if that's a goal for someone. There's a concept called time-restricted eating, and I think it's a really great tool to reduce snacks and also to help people with weight loss. And what this is basically when someone goes for a period of, say, between kind of 8 and 10 hours, and that 8 to 10 hours is what we call their eating window. And then they might go from, 14 to 16 hours of fasting, so not eating anything. And what that means is that you're having your meals closer together, you're reducing your need for snacks, and you're giving your body this really good window that's insulin-free. And during that window of fasting, that's actually when the body does most of its healing, but it's also when it makes it much easier to lose weight. So you might be consuming the same amount of food as you would if you kind of grazed all day, but you're just doing it in a more structured way in a particular kind of eating window. And for some people, that works really well.
Wow, that is fascinating. So I just worked it out quickly. If we have breakfast at 8, we have 8 hours, so till 4 o'clock, I think it's till 4 o'clock, to eat all of what we need to for the day, nutritionally balanced, of course, and without overeating too much. And then we go 14 to 16 hours without anything, which is, sleeping and, doing whatever. So, and that's supposed to really get our bodies into, using what we've eaten and feeling good about that. Is that right, Stace?
Yeah, and it's also that particular approach has also been linked to the same kind of benefits as what someone would get if they're on a ketogenic diet. So that includes not just weight loss, but improved energy, really good lean muscle mass growth, and also longevity. So it's been linked to longevity. I find that 8 hours can be a little bit tricky. I know for me that's a little bit tricky, but on the weekends, for example, you could have a late breakfast or a brunch at 10, and then you could be eating, dinner at 6, and it'll work really well. But I think 10 hours as an eating window is much more realistic and doable. And the research shows there's still a lot of benefits to having, that 10-hour eating window and having a 14-hour fast. So I think for a lot of people, it's something really simple that they can do that makes a really big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. That is golden advice and something really practical too, because the idea is, we shouldn't be feeling like we're starving, but we don't need to be feeling like we're exploding either.
That's exactly right, yeah. And it's good to let your body let you know when it's hungry. We don't need to preempt that. So it's good to get those hunger signals, and not constantly try to be preempting, I'm going to be hungry in half an hour, so I might eat now. It's good to wait until you do get those signals and then you eat.
And as a parent, we're always in the kitchen, and we're the worst for snacking and biting here and standing up and eating and snacking there. We're absolutely terrible for it, me included. So it's a really good idea to sort of get a handle on that and actually sit down and, have a meal instead of just eating on the run while you're serving up 15 children or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, Stace, what are the main tips to nail overeating and mindless snacking?
Yeah, so there's a few things. I think the time-restricted eating is a really good one. So having that kind of eating window. But also you just mentioned one right then, which is slowing down and really kind of just making a conscious choice to serve yourself smaller portions and to eat more slowly. So kind of do as the French do there. They eat less, but they eat more slowly, and they're very satiated. They eat really rich food, that they don't, that their calories are pretty much matched, to the average kind of Westerner, but the way they eat is totally different, and therefore they don't have as many issues with obesity and things as what we do. Also just eating from smaller bowls and smaller plates and smaller cups. So especially if you're a fast eater, it just really helps to actually, get rid of that big satellite size plate that you might have and change it up with a smaller one. It makes a really big difference over time. Another one I think is just to be really mindful when you are shopping of that, 30% more label or the 2-for-1 label, and those promotions. Often those promotions are on junk foods, and just because you get 30% more for the same price, it doesn't mean that it's a bargain. It's certainly not a bargain as far as your body's concerned. So I think the other thing that I would recommend would be to just eat decent meals that do satiate you. So you're not looking for a snack every few hours, and make sure that you do have, enough fibre and good fat and protein for breakfast, for example, and the same with lunch. It just makes such a huge difference to what happens in between those meals. And if you're not literally hungry, then, it's significantly going to reduce obviously the need for snacks in between. So when you're eating out, obviously it's good to share. Restaurant portion sizes, can often be anyway, just way too big. So whether it be order an entree size, order one main between two people, and maybe get a smaller side or something. And the same applies if you're a dessert lover. Order one and share it. You can always get more if you need it. But you're not going to get less. Once it's at your plate, on your table, you're generally going to try to eat it. So order less and share, basically. And, an easy one is not to eat while distracted. So, don't eat dinner while you're watching TV. We know that people who, for example, eat dinner while they're watching, a 30-minute program versus a 60-minute program. Those that eat while they're watching the 60-minute program do eat a whole lot more. So the length of the time of the TV program actually determines the length of the time that we're eating. And that is just a classic example of mindless eating. So we're totally distracted and we're really not aware of how much we're consuming. And often we eat very quickly as well when we're distracted. I think eating real food, and it just sounds so basic, doesn't it? But when you do eat foods that, that they just have a high level of nutrition in them, you need less of that food to feel really satisfied. So that's this whole principle that the quality reduces quantity. And it is so true. I just see it time and time again. When you start choosing quality foods, the quantity of what you're eating does go down. And finally, listen to your body. Your needs will be different to your kids' needs or your co-workers or your husband's. So, if you're uncomfortable or sluggish or bloated after a meal, have a think about why that might be, and perhaps you need to eat less. If you're still hungry or, feeling really unsatisfied after a meal, then maybe you need to change what's in that meal, change the balance of different things in that meal, or maybe you do need to eat more of it. So it's just a matter of really listening in, and we need to slow down in order to do that. So, that's, I guess, a summary of some places to start. And although some of those seem really basic and small, if you add them all up and do them consistently, they have really powerful consequences for how we eat and what impact that has on our body over time.
And you said the magic word there, Stace, over time. As we always talk about, you and I, how much it takes to progress and to achieve good health, you need to be patient, and is always progress over time. So, we need to sort of reiterate that, because I think, guys, everyone listening, if you think you're going to go out and just achieve, nail all these habits in one day and they're going to be with you for life, it's a misconception that that's possible and that's actually beneficial. We always think about, creating these habits for lifelong results and for life. So it may take longer to nail each one of these and to practice and be okay with that. Would you agree, Stace?
Absolutely, and that's kind of the reason as to why we've done what we've done with the nutrition part of the programs, because we've chunked it down. Okay, well, this week I think this is a really good area to focus on, and then this week is something else that you might be able to focus on, so that you're not trying to do too much at once, and not all of that will apply for everyone. There's certain people that really need to just work on maybe emotional eating first, or other people that really just need to work on hydration first, so it's going to be different for everyone as to where they start. But definitely, it is definitely a case of progress over time.
Yeah, for sure. And be patient with yourself. Be nice to yourself. You're going to stuff up. We all have those times where we eat something that we shouldn't. But the most important thing is, do we sit and dwell on it, or do we move on and just make a better choice the next day? And Stacey's really good at making you feel okay about that, aren't you, Stace?
Yes. Yeah, I'm not perfect either, and certainly don't expect anyone else to be.
Yeah, true. Well, thank you so much for all of those tips and tricks and such an in-depth insight into overeating and mindless snacking, two of the biggest issues that people face most of the time when they're trying to progress their health and really get a handle on eating well. But now I'm going to move on to my component. So we've done the foodie chick component. Now Stace is going to jump in and ask me any questions if I go too fast or if I skim over a topic that's really important. So Stace, make sure you jump in and pull me up at any stage.
I will.
But thank you, Stace, and I'll just give a little brief introduction about who I am and where, in fact, I live and who the hell is Joy McClymont. So basically, guys, I'm a Certificate 4 personal trainer, which means that I'm a step above just a gym instructor, and then I have the qualifications to coach people one-on-one to personally achieve their goals. I'm also, as I stated, owner of a business called Off the Track Training, which was originated from my very sloppy comeback from motherhood on a property in the middle of nowhere, which is where I live, about 100 kilometres west of Longreach. I have 4 children and a wonderful husband, and we run sheep and cattle. Off the Track Training was created because as a person trying to get fit in the middle of nowhere, not being able to access gyms or anything, I was really wanting to, jump in and be a part of something and be trained by somebody and be excited about fitness again, even though I was living in an isolated area. And lo and behold, there was nothing, and I couldn't engage. People didn't understand where I lived. There was no training groups around, and not even any much virtual fitness going on, so I couldn't engage online. So basically I started the business myself, and I started training people, and we all started training together. And now that's how the business has grown. We all train and we all exercise and eat well, and we all support each other, and you feel part of a group. And when you feel part of a group that's all doing similar things to what you want to do, then it's easier to actually do them. And that's the power of a team, of a tribe, and that's what I endeavour to create and continue developing. So, as a person who loves to be fit, I was once an Ironman triathlete, and I am no longer an Ironman triathlete. That has completely left my body and my system. But I've learned a lot about exercise and training and physical fitness over the span of about 15 years, from being a swimming coach, a triathlete and a triathlon coach, always being involved in sport, and starting Off the Track Training nearly 10 years ago. So I've been training people in this form for a long time now, and there's been a lot of conversations with a variety of people living in all places across Australia. So there's a lot of challenges and barriers and things that we come up against when trying to be physically fit that I'm endeavouring to provide a solution to you guys, to that. And one of them is consistency. So many people want to achieve consistency. When I ask people, what do you want to change? What do you want to achieve? They always say, I want to be consistent, and I want to do this, forever. I don't want to fall off the wagon again. It is this yo-yo behaviour that people go at like a bull at a gate with a fitness program, and then they end up completely exhausted, injured, or disinterested, and then it leaves their life. The fitness regime goes out the window for weeks and months on end until they get that vibe again. So there's no consistency. And when there's no consistency, the benefits of physical fitness are deteriorated. So consistency is important. Being consistent is important, but we need to understand what consistency means for us and why creating a fitness habit is important for life. And that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. So first of all, why strive for consistency? How does it actually benefit us physically? Well, there's a lot of different ways that it benefits us. The first, and probably the most obvious, is that it elevates our cardiovascular system. So our cardiovascular system, when it is constantly worked above normal activity levels, then it actually improves our heart, muscle, our stroke volume, our bloods and our cells. Every system within our body works better when we are cardio fit, and cardiovascular system is behind that. Our breathing, our lung capacity, everything. Now, being cardio fit does not require you to be training hours on end every day, and that is the big misconception. So striving for consistency doesn't mean that you have to do 2 hours a day every day for the rest of your life, and we'll talk about the measures of consistency. So cardio fitness is one reason why, one impact of consistency, because you're hitting that cardiovascular system and constantly keeping it enlivened and strong by being consistent. The other reason that consistency is important is because it keeps your muscles remembering how to move, and it also keeps their strength up. So if you are doing body weight exercises 3 times a week, you're engaging different muscle groups, you're moving in a variety of different ways, that really helps you to become holistically fit and strong. It's when we just move like we've always moved, we only use the muscles that we use to do our daily activities, that's when things start to come unstuck in our body. We're not loading up the muscle with any extra load, so we deteriorate our strength. And so by being consistent with your strength work, it keeps our muscles moving in a variety of different ways. It keeps our joints supple, and it keeps our muscles strong. And all of that impacts on your quality of life. So no matter what, strength underpins what you do and what you are able to do through any age bracket in your life. Strength is absolutely critical, particularly for women, because we are so susceptible to osteoporosis with our hormones and all of those sorts of elements. Our bone density levels are very precious and fragile, so we need to be making sure we are consistent with our strength work. The other reason that consistency is important is because it allows us to be on a rising plane of improvement throughout any age group. So by being consistent, you are able to just continually improve, even though it might be gradually, but that's more effective and important than if you improve for 6 weeks and then you completely drop off the wagon way back, less than you were at the beginning. So being consistent allows us to be on a rising plane of improvement with our strength, cardio fitness, balance, flexibility, any type of physical fitness we really focus on. And lastly, being or striving for consistency develops a habit for life. If you have a physical fitness habit ingrained in your routine or your lifestyle, then it's going to stay with you for life, and there's so much more benefit in that than if you just suddenly take it up for 6 weeks and then don't come back to it for 6 months. And you're on and off the roller coaster all the time. You're yo-yo exercising. So being consistent allows us to develop that habit where we wake up one day and we just go, oh yeah, I haven't done my exercise today. Geez, I better do that. It's just like having a cup of tea or, any habit that we've got, cleaning our teeth. Any habit that we've got in our life, we need fitness to be one of those habits that we feel odd about not doing. And when it's like that, you're on the money. If you're consistent, you are more likely to create that type of habit and that type of routine with fitness in your life. So moving on then, habits. These are important. There's obviously a couple of different types. There's positive habits and there's negative habits. But as the quote says, we are what we consistently do. Excellence is therefore not an act, but a habit. Now, you can apply this to how you move, how you think, and what you eat. You are what you consistently do. Consistency is important in every facet of our lives. If we constantly think that we're crappy, we're overweight, our self-esteem is low, we feel bad about ourselves, we feel like we're useless, that is what will manifest itself. If you are constantly thinking you're short of time, you can't fit it in, that's what will manifest itself. If you are constantly saying to yourself, I'm not capable of doing this exercise, I'm not strong enough, I'm not fit enough, that's exactly what you'll get. You have to change your thinking, and you have to change your actions to follow that up. But going back, there's a positive habit and there's a negative habit. We want to create more positive habits in our life than negative ones, don't we? So a positive habit, once it's ingrained, of eating well and exercising, it's very hard to break. If you are in a habit of consistently eating this type of food, then it's really hard to break. It's just like if somebody said to you, if you've got a habit of waking up first thing in the morning and always having a cup of coffee, and if someone said to you, right, you can't do that anymore, it would be hard to break it would be difficult at the start. And there's a couple of things that we'd be thinking, why do I have to do this? And is it really worth it? I love my coffee. What's the big deal in it? I might as well have it. It's no big deal. So to actually break some of those negative habits, we need to be thinking about whether we truly believe that it's worth changing and worth, getting rid of that habit. And we have to be mentally strong to make it happen. So yes, it's important to identify that habit isn't very good for us. It's a bit like when people are eating a food that they know they shouldn't. It's just a habit to be eating this type of food, and they know they shouldn't, but they still eat it. Innately, they don't really believe that food is causing them any harm. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes people a long time to really believe that it's not great for them. Take me in coffee, for example. I always use the coffee example. I have known for a long time that coffee doesn't agree with me. I'm not a good processor of coffee. I have gone and, drunk coffee, 1 or 2 cups a day, and I've always felt sick and la. Anyway, it wasn't until a couple of months ago where I just had the worst time ever with coffee, and I was totally shaking all the time, and I just thought, that's it. It's got to go. And I truly believed it was doing me damage then. Before that, I was like, it's not so bad. I can process it okay. It's not causing me much damage. It's the only bad thing I do. It's all right. I can get around it. It wasn't until I took it out of my diet and went cold turkey, and for 10 days I thought I had glandular fever. I realized what coffee was doing to me. And then it was easy. I just went, right, I'm never going back there. I never want to feel like that again. Coffee and I, the relationship's over. We've separated. And it's all good. I haven't looked back. It's easy now. I don't even think about having a coffee. But breaking those bad habits at the start, you have to really believe that deleting that habit from your life is really important. And that's probably the most significant thing about breaking negative habits. But the positive ones, once you start, eating well, or, say, for example, eating a good breakfast with a palm-sized portion of protein instead of Vegemite on toast. It's supercharging up your greens, adding a handful of greens to lunch instead of just, a couple of bits of bread. If you start doing those and habitually do them and do them more often, then they just become normal. And before you know it, you're just going, I don't have bread at lunch. I have a handful of baby spinach and then half of an avocado, and I have my chia seeds, and it's just like the norm. But it takes a while to do that. It takes consistency. It takes you remembering what to do and remembering over a period of time. It's not going to happen overnight, but once that habit's developed, it's with you for life. And that's what's wonderful about it. Once you have a bank of good recipes, once you're actually getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and it's no big deal, and you're doing your exercise session then, once you start those habits, then they are really hard to break, just like the bad ones, and they're with you for a really long time. So we want to create a bank of positive habits with physical fitness, eating well, and our mindset that's with us for life. We don't want to be dipping in and out all the time. We might do at the start, but the long-term view is that one day this is going to be the norm. This is the way we think. This is how we eat. This is how we move. So it's really important to remember that. Okay, so let's move on to something else that's pretty significant when we talk about consistency. Everybody wants consistency, but the big question I always ask people is, well, what do you define as consistency? What does it mean for you? Because being consistent is different for everybody. Yes, there is a benchmark. So, for example, in the fitness world, we talk about 3 cardio sessions a week above normal activity levels. Okay, so 3 cardio sessions a week above normal activity levels of 20 minutes. That's your benchmark. That's your minimum benchmark. Then we talk about at least 2 to 3 strength sessions where you're loading up your muscles. Then we talk about 2 flexibility sessions. So there are some benchmarks. Now, do you know what? I don't achieve all that every week. I rarely do. But I am consistent with doing something. And that's that big word is something. We can't just drop off the wagon for weeks and months on end and do nothing about our physical fitness. It's unacceptable. Our body will tell us that we're not doing enough. Okay, we need to be ingraining that habit of physical fitness into our lives, even if it's not, every single day, if it's every second day, if it's 3 times a week, if it's 4 times a week. But being consistent is important, and having it present in your life somewhere is so significant. But there are so many factors that determine what consistency means for the individual. One, believe it or not, it's your body shape and your bone structure. Every single person is built differently. And I'm not talking about the body shape you have because you're carrying an extra 20 kilos. I'm talking about your body shape, whether your shoulders are wider than your hips or your hips are wider than your shoulders or whatever it might be. A lot of those things determine how much exercise we should and need to be doing and what type of exercise. So some people are just not built to be runners, but they think they have to run. Some people are just not built to be lifting heavy weights all the time, but they think they have to. Some people need to lift heavy weights, but they do something like running. So it's looking at what your body needs. I mean, the perfect example is a woman who is fine-boned and petite and does running but doesn't do any strength work. And strength work is probably more critical to that type of body shape than anything else, mainly because a petite person, small wrists, are more susceptible to bone density issues. So they need to be loading up their muscles so that that improves their bone density. So body shape and bone structure determine how much exercise you should do and what type. The other is age. We change. Our physical fitness and our needs change as we go through each age bracket. Now, somebody who's in their 20s and 30s might be fine with running. Once you get past 40, you start to develop some sort of wear and tear in those joints, and it's how you look after them that's important. So keeping strong, keeping flexible, it's important. As we age, we have other things that deteriorate, and we need to be looking at what we need. Like a lot of the people, especially in the Spring into Life program, are 40 and 50 plus. We focus on balance, flexibility, as well as cardio fitness and strength. So it needs to be a well-rounded program, but balance and flexibility is critical because those are the things that deteriorate as we get older. And we don't use them as much either. We're not climbing the monkey bars. The other things to consider with consistency and you as an individual person is your lifestyle and your family and your other priorities in life. Now, whatever fitness routine you develop in your life, it has to fit with your lifestyle. If it doesn't fit, then you're not likely to maintain it and you're not likely to achieve consistency. I've banged on about this for a long time because, I live on this property in the middle of nowhere. I've got 4 children, husband, grazing boys, business, and we've all got these things in our lives, all these pieces of the puzzle. We've all got hobbies and interests and people that need us. We do definitely need to prioritize time for ourselves. However, we also need to take into consideration the other important things in our lives that we enjoy doing. Now, I don't advocate drop everything, I'm going to exercise for 2 hours a day, I don't care if your breakfast is or isn't ready, I'm going to do that to whatever. And, we know when we've tipped the scales on it being not quite a right fit because we don't feel so good about it. I can get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and get my session done, and I'm there to do breakfast and get the kids sorted, and I feel okay about that. Now, if I was getting up, later at 6 and I was making everybody rush because I was back from that session late and I didn't have a chance to cook a good breakfast for the kids and I was, under the pump, then I know that something is out of kilter and I know it doesn't fit. So fitting in the fitness that fits with your lifestyle and your priorities in life, it still has to be there somewhere. You still have to do something, but it doesn't need to be extreme and drop everything, I'm doing this boot camp type of approach. It doesn't need to be like that to be effective. The other things that impact on our consistency are obviously injuries and illnesses. There's a lot of people that I train that actually need to do less rather than more. You know, they think they have to exercise every day for 45 minutes. In fact, what they need to do is 3 yoga sessions a week because they're extremely tight and they've got a lot of muscle mass and tightness in their body. And they just need to go for that, 20-minute cardiovascular walk, and they need to do a little strength session as well. So sometimes and some weeks you'll need to do less intensity and more rest and recovery. And some people will need more of that type of program. So you need to be thinking about, well, what are my needs? What are my priorities? What's important for me physically, mentally, and what fits with my life? And then create your consistency benchmark around that. The other thing is obviously your interests and your goals. If you have a goal of running a marathon, then you're going to have to be fairly consistent with your cardio exercise and your runs and your strength work. Now, consistency for that type of goal might be at least 3 to 4 sessions a week. Maybe more, but not generally speaking, 3 to 4 will get you to a marathon. So depending on the goal and depending on the event, your consistency will be determined by that a lot of the time. If it's general fitness and overall well-being, well, you can play with it as much as you like. But when it comes to specific events and goals, well, yeah, you do have to do a set number of sessions, a set time during the week. So consistency is determined by you as an individual. Yes, there are some benchmarks, but how fitness works for you, what it looks like in your life, can only be determined by you. As a trainer, I can tell you, the 20,000 different things that you can do to be fit and healthy. The options are endless. And in fact, sometimes I sit down and write my own program, and I'm completely confused because there is so many choices. I just go, should I do yoga? Should I do CrossFit? Should I do a little bit of intensity training this week? Should I do some sprints, some stamina? What's best for me? And the thing I always come back to is, what do I feel like I need? Do I feel like I need to stretch and strengthen? Do I feel like I want to try something new and do a bit of this other DVD? Or do I try something new and do some high-intensity training? Or do I a long walk or a long run? Or do a long ride? Do I mix it up that way? Every week I go through the same, okay, what am I going to focus on this week? And I might put a month together for myself. Now, when I train people, I give them the week and I lay out the month and I say, this is it. This is what you guys are focusing on. And it's so good because then they go, yep, this is my focus. This is what I have to tick off each day, and it keeps them on track and it keeps them excited because it's new. And when you're trying to be consistent with exercise, you can become quite bored because you might be just doing the same thing over and over again. It's not important to do the same thing over and over again unless you're trying to achieve a specific event or goal. But variety is critical. And you guys I've talked to a lot of people about how important it is to vary your workouts, not only because it's physically more beneficial, but because it keeps you excited about exercising. You don't know what the session's going to be. Is it going to be a speed session? Oh, yes, it's great. I'll lock that in and do that. And it makes you excited and therefore more consistent. So just right for me means that you need to sit down and ask yourself some questions about what you need as a person. Now, trainers like me, we can help you. And in fact, if you're engaging with me on the Facebook page or anything like that, I'm happy to answer any of your questions or any recommendations you might want. That's easy. So now we go on to this lifetime habit and this maintaining this consistent routine forever. So for now and forever, it's a long-term marriage with fitness. It's not a one-night stand. It's not a, couple of dates and then never see you again. It's a long-term commitment. It really is. And once we believe that this fitness routine is forever, and we get the boot camp and the 6-week mark and the 12-week mark and all that out of our heads, if we just focus on, well, this is my new thing for life, then it actually takes a bit of the pressure off, because you've got your whole life to feel better, to change, to achieve whatever it is. You've got your whole life. There's no time limit on it. I read once that the last chapter of your life has not been written yet. It's up to you to write. And I love that, because when it comes to fitness, you have got time. People that say they're too old or too unfit, that's totally untrue. You're never too old. You're never too unfit. You can start, and wherever you get to is where you get to. There's no time limit on it. Yes, you can have benchmarks and specific things that you achieve and ways to measure your progress. That's fine. But remember that this fitness gig, it's a lifetime thing. You're in it for life. It doesn't mean it's every day. Don't get scared about that, and don't get, oh my God, I can't believe I've got to exercise forever. Don't get worried about that. Remember, this is an opportunity for your body to be in the best shape possible at every single age you reach. And for everything that you want to do in life, whether you want to chase around cows and kids or travel overseas, whatever it is, you need to be physically fit. You need to. And your health really is absolutely critical. My favorite quote ever is that you only ever have to live in one place, and that's your body. So we can change and move towns wherever we like, but you really only have to live in one place, and that's the body that you were born with. So my big tips is to avoid going so hard that you cause yourself injury or exhaustion. I know that at times in sessions and odd weeks, we do go bananas. We do, exercise every day and we have a really tough week. And you know what? We always feel like a recovery week the next week. But be open-minded about the fact that even though that week was intense, we don't have to sustain that, and in fact we can't. But we still have to maintain something for the rest of our lives. It's got to be there. It's a fitness habit that we're maintaining for life, and that's when you truly see change in how you feel with your body. Absolutely. 110%. If you are consistent, you will become stronger. If you are consistent, you will become fitter and more cardiovascular fit. You will feel more energy. You'll be more confident, and you'll be making better food choices. They say that exercise is the gate opener to eating healthy, and it absolutely is. Once you're exercising, you make better choices about your food because you're respecting your body and you're looking after it, and that's a wonderful thing. So for now and forever, it's a lifetime gig. Physical fitness, exercising, creating that consistent routine, lifetime gig. All right, so taking action is important. Deciding that you want to be consistent is a given. I'm not giving you a choice. You've got to be consistent, okay? It's so important. It's so critical to avoid that yo-yo diet. So we want people to be consistent. We want to create lifelong habits with health. We don't want it to be just this wham, bam, in and out, see you later, going back to old habits. We want the new ones to be taking over the negative ones. So, taking action, this is the deal. This is what you need to do. Take a good hard look at what you really want to be doing in your life. I know that's a really open-ended question, but it'll get more specific. Take a really hard look at what your benchmark is. What do I want to be doing, achieving? Look at the sessions you want to be doing, whether you want to run, ride, walk, trek. Is it a goal? Is it something that you want to feel or achieve? Think about what it is that you want to see in your life when it comes to being physically fit and healthy. Then work back from there and ask yourself, to achieve that or to feel that, how many sessions per week can I maintain consistently? Not just this week, not just this month, but forever. How many sessions per week? And what are the types of sessions that I need to be doing? Do I need to be running? Do I need to be doing strength work? Do I need to be doing yoga? What do I need to be doing to reach that goal? So you're working backwards. How many sessions per week? What are the types of sessions I need to do? And how long are those sessions? You know, if you're training for a marathon, they're going to have to be 2 hours plus some of those sessions. How long are you willing to put in to those fitness sessions? To be realistic, you know, I haven't exercised for an hour or over for months, and I very rarely do. I love high-intensity interval training. I love weights, and I love, you know, short burst speed stuff. And then every now and again I'll throw in an endurance run because variety is important. So occasionally I do the long one, but very rarely do I exercise over 30 minutes or 40 minutes or something like that. It's really quite common for that to happen, and in fact there's no damage in doing the shorter, faster sessions. So think about what your big benchmark is. What do you want to see in your life? What do you want to change, achieve? What does fitness look like for you in your life? How many sessions do you want to achieve or tick off per week, and how many can you actually do? So think about your lifestyle and all those other commitments. What are the types of sessions that you want to see in there, and what are the length of those sessions? It's pretty easy. And then start. You know, don't delay. Start. Make a decision, take action, and get it done. And that's the most important lesson. Don't overthink it. Just start something, and you will get there one step at a time. Guys, that's the end of our webinar, Make Your Move Series 1. It's really exciting to have you guys all on tonight, and I hope that you can join us for the next webinar, which will be about carbohydrates and self-image. Carbohydrates is one of the most controversial issues. Do we eat too many? Do we eat the right ones? Do we need them at all? So Stacey's going to talk all about carbohydrates, and I'll be talking about self-image and the impact that has on what we can achieve. Basically, the way that you perceive yourself to be, how fit you perceive yourself to be, what you're capable of achieving, all of those things are determined by our self-image. Thank you so much for taking some time to really progress your health and fitness. You're on the money. See ya and good night, guys.